Jake Murphy gripped the controls of his escape pod as red warning lights flashed around him. The small ship shook and rattled as it moved away from the burning wreckage of the Starlight Runner. His cargo ship was gone. 3 years of work destroyed in less than 10 minutes by pirates who came out of nowhere. The escape pod was barely big enough for one person. Jake sat in the pilot seat, watching his former ship break apart in the black of space. Pieces of metal floated past his small window. He had been lucky to get out alive. Most of his crew had not been so lucky. Jake checked his systems. The pod had enough air for maybe 2 days. Food for 3 days if he was careful. The power would last a bit longer. He needed to find a place to land soon, or he would die out, here alone. He was reaching for the navigation controls when something slammed into the side of his pod. The whole ship spun sideways. Warning alarms started screaming. Jake fought to control the spinning pod as something heavy hit the outer door. "What the hell?" Jake said out loud. The outer airlock made a loud hissing sound. Someone or something was trying to get in. Jake reached for the small pistol on his belt. Pirates, maybe. Or worse. The inner door burst open with a bang. A figure flew through the opening and crashed toward the control panel. Jake moved without thinking. He reached out and grabbed the first thing he could catch. His hand closed around something long and smooth. A tail. The figure stopped falling just inches from the navigation controls. If she had hit them, both of them would be dead. The pod would have lost power, and they would drift in space forever. Jake pulled gently and helped the figure turn around. He found himself looking at a woman, but not a human woman. Her skin was covered in small green scales that caught the light. Her eyes were large and yellow, like a cat's eyes. Her face was shaped like a human face, but her nose was flat and her mouth was wider. She had no hair but had small ridges on her head where hair should be. She was wearing almost nothing, just torn pieces of cloth that barely covered her body. She had cuts and bruises all over her arms and legs. Green blood seeped from a wound on her shoulder. She looked at Jake with wide eyes. Then she looked down at his hand, which was still holding her tail. Her face turned a darker shade of green. "You touched my tail," she said in English. Her voice was soft but strange, like she was not used to speaking the language. "Sorry," Jake said, letting go quickly. "You were about to hit the controls. That would have killed us both." She stared at him for a long moment. "You saved me," she said finally. "I guess so," Jake said. "Who are you? What happened to your ship?" She tried to sit up and winced in pain. "My name is Zara. I am Velkari. My research ship was attacked by the same pirates that destroyed your vessel. They killed my crew. I barely escaped in a damaged shuttle." Jake looked toward the airlock. "Where is your shuttle now?" "Gone," Zara said sadly. "It was falling apart. I had to jump to your pod before it exploded. I almost missed." Jake nodded. He looked at her wounds. Some were deep and still bleeding. "You need medical help," he said. He moved to the small medical kit mounted on the wall. The kit was basic, meant for simple cuts and bruises, but it was better than nothing. "Hold still," Jake said. He cleaned the worst cut on her arm with antiseptic. Zara made a small sound of pain but did not pull away. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "I am a stranger, an alien. Many humans fear my people." Jake shrugged as he put a bandage on her arm. "You are hurt. That is all that matters." Zara watched him work. "Among my people, touching someone's tail without permission is very personal. It means you care about them deeply. Or you wish to bond with them." Jake's face turned red. "I did not know. I was just trying to stop you from hitting the controls." "I know," Zara said. "That is what makes it interesting. You risked something personal to save both our lives. Without thinking about it." Jake finished with the bandages and sat back. "What kind of research were you doing? Why did the pirates want your ship?" Zara's expression became serious. "I study diseases, plagues that spread between different worlds and species. I discovered something terrible. A new plague that was created on purpose. Someone made it to kill entire worlds. Who would do something like that? Jake asked. I do not know yet. But I have proof. Data files that show how the plague was made, and who might be spreading it. The pirates want to steal this information and sell it. Jake looked around his small pod. Do you still have the data? Zara touched a small device on her belt. It was the only thing she had brought with her. Yes, but we have bigger problems now. She pointed to the navigation screen. Jake looked and saw red warning lights flashing. The pod's systems were damaged from the impact of her arrival. The power is failing, Jake said, and we are being pulled toward that planet. He pointed out the window at a green and brown world growing larger in front of them. Can you control the landing? Zara asked. Jake tried the controls. Some worked, some did not. Maybe, but it will not be gentle. The planet filled their view now. Jake could see thick clouds and what looked like jungle covering most of the surface. The atmosphere scanner showed the air was barely breathable for humans. For Velkari, it might be toxic. Hold on, Jake said. This is going to be rough. The pod shook harder as it entered the atmosphere. The heat shield glowed red outside the window. Jake fought with the controls, trying to slow their fall. There, he said, pointing to a clearing in the jungle. I will try to land there. The pod spun as it fell. Jake fired the emergency engines, but they only worked for a few seconds before dying. The ground rushed up at them. Brace yourself, Jake shouted. The pod hit the ground hard. It bounced once, twice, then slid through the jungle, breaking trees and scraping against rocks. Finally, it came to a stop against a large tree. Jake's head hurt and his vision was blurry. He could taste blood in his mouth. But he was alive. Zara, he called out. She was unconscious, hanging in her safety straps, but she was breathing. Jake checked her pulse. It was strong but fast. He looked out the window at the alien jungle around them. Strange plants with purple leaves grew everywhere. In the distance, he could hear sounds like nothing on Earth, roars and calls from creatures he could not imagine. The pod's computer was damaged, but still working a little. It showed that the air outside had too much methane for humans to breathe safely. They would need to stay inside the pod or find another source of air. Jake looked at their supplies. Food for 3 days, water for 2 days. The power would last, maybe one day if he was careful with it. They were stranded on an alien world with almost no supplies and a damaged ship. Pirates might still be looking for them, and somewhere in this jungle were creatures that made sounds like nightmares. But they were alive. And Jake had learned one important thing already. When things got dangerous, he could count on himself to do the right thing, even if it meant grabbing an alien's tail to save both their lives. He looked at Zara's unconscious form and made a decision. Whatever it took, he would keep them both alive until help came, even if help never came at all. Zara woke up to the sound of metal being torn apart. She opened her eyes and saw Jake outside the pod, pulling pieces of the outer hull away from the main cabin. He had put on an emergency breathing mask and was working in the toxic air. Jake, she called through the broken communicator. What are you doing? He looked up and gave her a thumbs-up sign. Then he pointed to the sky. Dark clouds were forming overhead and the wind was getting stronger. Zara checked the pod's systems. The computer was barely working, but it showed a storm coming. A big one, the kind that could tear apart what was left of their shelter. Jake came back inside, taking off his breathing mask. His face was red and he was breathing hard. The air out there burns my lungs, he said, but I can work in it for short periods. You should not go outside at all, Zara said. The methane levels will poison you. Maybe, Jake said. But if I do not reinforce this pod, the storm will kill us both. I would rather die trying than die doing nothing. Zara had never heard anyone talk like that. Her people were smart and careful. When the risks were too high, they found safer options. They did not do dangerous things just because they might work. There has to be a better way, she said. Jake looked out at the jungle around them. Maybe, but I do not see one, so I will do what I can with what we have." He went back outside with more pieces of metal from the pod's damaged sections. Zara watched him work. He moved slowly because of the bad air, but he kept working. He used broken pieces to cover holes in their shelter. He tied things down with cables from the pod systems. The storm hit 2 hours later. Wind and rain pounded their makeshift shelter. Lightning turned the sky white and purple. Strange sounds came from the jungle as creatures howled in the storm. The pod shook and rattled, but it held together. Jake's repairs kept them safe and dry. "How did you know that would work?" Zara asked. Jake wiped sweat from his face. "I did not know. I hoped. Sometimes hoping is enough." When the storm ended, they could see the damage it had done to the jungle around them. Trees were broken and fallen everywhere, but in the distance Zara saw something interesting. "Jake, look there," she said, pointing through the window. Beyond the fallen trees she could see stone structures, old buildings covered in vines and plants. They looked like they had been there for thousands of years. "Ruins," Jake said. "Someone used to live here." Zara's scientific training took over. "If there are ruins, there might be technology, maybe even working technology. Or it might be dangerous," Jake said. "But we need to find food and water soon. Our supplies will not last much longer." They gathered what they could carry from the pod. Jake took his pistol, some tools, and the emergency medical kit. Zara took her research data and a small scanner that could analyze plants and materials. The walk to the ruins was difficult. The ground was muddy from the storm, and strange plants blocked their path. Some of the plants moved when they got close, reaching out with vine-like arms. "Stay away from the purple ones," Zara said, looking at her scanner. "They are toxic to both our species." Jake used a metal rod to push the plants aside as they walked. He was careful not to touch anything directly. The ruins were bigger than they had looked from the pod. Ancient buildings made of smooth stone rose up through the jungle. Strange symbols were carved into the walls. Some buildings had fallen down, but others looked like they might still be intact inside. "This place is old," Jake said. "Really old." Zara's scanner beeped as they approached the largest building. "I am reading energy signatures," she said. "Faint, but there is still power here somehow." They found an entrance that was mostly clear of plants. Jake went first, using a flashlight to light the way. The inside of the building was dark and cool. Water dripped from somewhere above them. The walls were covered in more symbols. In the center of the room was a large stone table with metal devices built into it. Some of the devices still glowed with soft light. "This looks like a control room," Zara said. "But the technology is unlike anything I have seen before." Jake approached the glowing devices carefully. "Can you figure out what they do?" Zara studied her scanner readings. "Maybe, but it will take time, and we need to find food and water first." They explored more of the ruins. In one building, they found what looked like a storage area. Most of the containers were empty or broken, but some held a clear liquid that Zara's scanner said was safe to drink. "Water," she said with relief. "Clean water." In another building, they found plants growing in what might have been a garden long ago. Zara tested several types with her scanner. "These red fruits are safe for you," she told Jake. "And these green leaves are safe for me. Not very tasty, but they will keep us alive." As they gathered food and water, Jake kept looking around the ruins. "Whoever lived here was smart," he said. "They built this place to last, and some of their technology still works after all this time." "Yes," Zara agreed. "But why did they leave? What happened to them?" They found part of the answer in the largest building. On the walls were pictures carved in stone. The pictures showed the planet as it used to be, green and blue with clear skies and oceans. Then the pictures showed the skies turning dark and the water disappearing. "Climate change," Zara said. "Something changed their world, made it hard to live here." "But they left their technology behind," Jake said. "Maybe they wanted someone to find it someday." That night, they made camp in one of the intact buildings. Jake built a small fire using dried plants and pieces of wood. The fire gave them light and warmth, and it helped cover their scent from whatever creatures lived in the jungle. As they ate their simple meal, Zara watched Jake work. He had taken apart one of the ancient devices and was studying how it was built. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to understand how their power system works," Jake said. "If I can figure it out, maybe we can get more of their technology working." "You are not an engineer," Zara said. "How do you know about such things?" Jake smiled. "I worked on cargo ships for 10 years. When something breaks in space, you learn to fix it yourself or you die. You figure out how things work because you have to." Zara thought about this. Her people had specialists for everything. Engineers for engineering, scientists for science, doctors for medicine. No one person tried to do everything. "Is that normal for humans?" she asked. "To know many different skills?" "I guess so," Jake said. "We learn what we need to survive." That night, as they took turns keeping watch, Zara heard sounds from the jungle that made her scales stand up. Roars and howls from creatures that sounded big and hungry. But Jake did not seem worried. "They are just animals," he said when she mentioned it. "Animals can be scared away or fought off. It is the intelligent enemies you have to worry about." "You mean the pirates?" Zara said. "Yes. If they are still looking for you, they will find this planet eventually. We need to be ready when they do." Zara looked at Jake sitting by the fire, working on the alien device with simple tools. He was not the strongest person she had ever met or the smartest, but he kept trying things even when they seemed impossible. He did not give up when things got difficult. Among her people, that would be considered foolish. Velkari analyzed risks carefully before acting. They did not waste time on plans that had low chances of success. But Jake's foolish plan to fix their shelter had saved their lives. His foolish plan to explore the ruins had found them food and water. Maybe human foolishness was not so foolish. "After all, Jake," she said quietly, "why did you save me in the pod? You did not know me. I could have been dangerous." Jake looked up from his work. "You were in trouble. That was enough." "But why? What if helping me had gotten you killed?" Jake thought about this for a moment. "Then I would have died trying to help someone. That seems like a better way to die than doing nothing." Zara stared at him. "Your species is very strange." Jake laughed. "Yeah, we get that a lot." As the night went on, the sounds from the jungle got closer. Whatever was out there was not afraid of their fire. Jake checked his pistol and made sure it was loaded. "Get some sleep," he told Zara. "I will take first watch." "What if those creatures attack?" she asked. Jake looked out into the dark jungle beyond their camp. His eyes were steady and calm. "Then we will deal with it," he said simply. "We will figure something out." The sound of engines woke Jake from a restless sleep. He opened his eyes and saw Zara already awake, looking scared. Through the stone walls of their shelter, they could hear ships landing nearby. "Pirates," Zara whispered. Jake grabbed his pistol and moved to the window. In the distance, he could see 3 ships landing in the clearing where their pod had crashed. Armed figures in combat suits were climbing out of the ships. Even from far away, Jake could tell they had better weapons and equipment than he did. "How many?" Zara asked. 12, maybe 15, Jake said, all armed. They have scanners and tracking equipment. One of the pirates was bigger than the others. He had to be their leader. Jake could see him pointing toward the ruins and giving orders to his crew. "They know we are here," Jake said. "They probably tracked our pod's energy signature." Zara looked at her research data device. "They want this information. If they get it, they can sell the plague data to anyone willing to pay. Millions of people could die." Jake studied the pirates through the window. They were moving in an organized pattern, checking each building systematically. They would reach the main ruins in maybe an hour. "We need to move," Jake said. "Can you run?" "Yes," Zara said. "But where can we go? They have ships. We are on foot." Jake thought quickly. "The jungle. We know it better than they do now. We can use it against them." "Use it how?" Zara asked. "They have better weapons, better equipment, more people." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "They also have more to lose. and they do not know how humans fight when they have to. They gathered their supplies quickly. Jake took everything useful from the ancient technology he had been studying. Zara packed her research data and scanner. They left through a back entrance that the pirates had not reached yet. Jake led them deeper into the jungle, away from the ruins. But he was not running away. He was thinking, planning. The purple plants, he said to Zara. The toxic ones. How toxic are they? Very toxic, Zara said. The juice from their leaves can kill most species in minutes. Good, Jake said. What about those sounds we heard last night? What kind of creatures make sounds like that? Zara checked her scanner data. Pack hunters. They hunt in groups of 8 to 12. They are fast and strong with sharp teeth. They avoid fire and loud sounds. Even better, Jake said. Zara stopped walking. Jake, what are you planning? Jake looked back toward the ruins. The pirates were getting closer. I am going to teach them why you do not mess with humans. You cannot fight 15 armed pirates with one pistol, Zara said. You are right, Jake agreed. I cannot fight them directly, so I will not fight fair. Jake found a good hiding spot behind some large rocks. From there, they could see the path. The pirates would use to follow their trail. Stay here, Jake told Zara. No matter what happens, do not come out until I call for you. Where are you going? She asked. To get some help, Jake said. He disappeared into the jungle before she could ask more questions. Jake moved carefully through the plants, avoiding the toxic purple ones for now. He found what he was looking for near a stream. Fresh tracks in the mud, large paw prints with claw marks. The pack hunters had been here recently, and they would be back. Jake took out his emergency medical kit and found the small bottle of adrenaline. He poured it on a piece of cloth, then rubbed the cloth on several trees around the area. The smell would attract the hunters and make them excited, aggressive. Then he went back to collect some of the purple plants. He was very careful not to touch the leaves directly. He used pieces of metal from the pod to cut them and store the toxic juice in small containers. By the time he got back to Zara, the pirates were close. Jake could hear them talking as they followed the trail. There are at least 2 of them, one pirate said. The tracking shows human and Velkari DNA traces. Good, said a deeper voice. That had to be the leader. The Velkari has what we need. The human is just extra cargo. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. They were talking about Zara like she was a thing to be sold. The first pirate appeared on the path below their hiding spot. He was carrying a large energy rifle and wearing body armor. Behind him came 2 more pirates, then the rest of the group. Leader was a big alien with gray skin and 4 arms. He had scars on his face and metal implants in his skull. His name was Captain Rex Vantok, according to the words on his uniform. Spread out, Vantok ordered. Check every hiding spot. They cannot have gone far. Jake waited until half the pirates had passed below them. Then he threw one of his toxic plant containers at the rocks near the back of the group. The container broke and splashed purple juice on 2 pirates. They started screaming immediately. The toxic juice burned through their armor and into their skin. Ambush, one of them yelled. The pirates started shooting in all directions, but they could not see Jake. He had already moved to a different position. Jake threw another container, this time at a tree above 3 more pirates. The toxic juice rained down on them. They ran away screaming and trying to wash the poison off their skin. Find him, Vantok roared. Kill the human. But Jake was already moving again. He had learned how to move quietly in the jungle. The pirates had not. Jake threw his 3rd container at the ground near the remaining pirates, but this time he had added something else to the juice, blood from the animals they had caught for food. The smell of blood mixed with the toxic plant. Juice created a scent that the pack hunters could not ignore. The howling started a few minutes later, deep, hungry sounds coming from several directions at once. What was that? One of the pirates asked nervously. Local wildlife, Vantok said. Nothing we cannot handle. He was wrong. The pack hunters came out of the jungle like shadows with teeth. They were bigger than wolves but moved like cats. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light under the trees. The pirates started shooting, but the hunters were fast. They dodged the energy beams and attacked from different angles. One pirate went down screaming, then another. Jake used the confusion to get closer. He threw his last toxic container directly at Vantok's feet. The big pirate captain jumped back, but some of the juice splashed on his legs. "You coward!" Vantok yelled into the jungle. "Face me like a warrior." Jake's voice came from the trees, but Vantok could not see him. "Warriors fight fair battles. This is not a fair battle. This is pest control." More hunters appeared. The pirates were now fighting creatures from two sides while trying to find Jake in the jungle. Some of the pirates ran back toward their ships. Others tried to climb trees to get away from the pack hunters. Vantok was still standing, but he was bleeding from the toxic juice burns. He fired his weapon randomly into the jungle. "I will find you, human," he screamed. "I will make you watch while I tear your alien friend apart." That was a mistake. Jake had been planning to let Vantok escape with the rest of his crew. But threatening, Zara changed everything. Jake came out of the jungle behind Vantok. He did not try to fight the big alien directly. Instead, he shot the captain's weapon out of his hands. Then he used a piece of rope to trip him. Vantok fell hard and rolled down a hill into the stream below. The pack hunters were waiting there. Jake did not watch what happened next. He climbed back up to where Zara was hiding. "Is it over?" she asked. Jake looked around at the empty jungle. The surviving pirates had run back to their ships. The pack hunters had disappeared back into the forest. The toxic plant juice was already breaking down in the air and soil. "For now," Jake said. "They will probably come back with more ships and more people, but they will be more careful next time." Zara stared at him. "You used the environment as a weapon. You turned the plants and animals into allies." "I used what was available," Jake said simply. "My people would never think to do such things," Zara said. "We would try to fight with superior technology or superior numbers. We would not think to use tricks." "Sometimes tricks are all you have," Jake said. "Sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what matters." They heard the sound of the pirate ships taking off. Jake and Zara watched them disappear into the sky. "They will be back," Zara said. "Yeah," Jake agreed. "But next time we will be ready for them." Zara looked at Jake with new understanding. "You did not just fight them. You scared them. They will tell other pirates about what happened here, about what humans can do." Jake nodded. "Fear is a weapon too. Sometimes it works better than guns." As they walked back toward the ruins, Zara thought about what she had seen. The pirates had better weapons, better armor, and more people. By every logical measure, they should have won easily, but they had not counted on human stubbornness. They had not expected Jake to turn the jungle itself into a battlefield. They had not understood that humans do not just fight to win. They fight to protect the people they care about, and that made them more dangerous than any weapon. That night, Jake and Zara hid in the deepest part of the ancient ruins. Jake had taken a bad hit during the fight with the pirates. A piece of broken rock had cut his arm when he dove for cover. The wound was not life-threatening, but it was deep and would not stop bleeding. Zara used the medical supplies to clean and bandage the wound. Her hands were gentle but skillful. Jake could see that she had medical training. "You are lucky," she said as she worked. "A few inches higher and this would have hit an artery." "I have always been lucky," Jake said, trying not to wince as she tightened the bandage. "Except for today." "Today you saved both our lives," Zara said. "I would call that very lucky." They sat in silence for a while. Outside they could hear the normal sounds of the jungle at night. No more engine noise, no more weapons fire. The pirates were gone, at least for now. "Tell me about your people," Jake said. "What is the Velkari Confederacy like?" Zara finished with his bandage and sat back. "We are old, very old. Our civilization has existed for over 50,000 of your years. We have seen many species rise and fall." "That is a long time," Jake said. "Yes, and in all that time we have learned to be careful. We do not take risks unless we are sure of success. We plan everything carefully. We calculate the odds before we act." Jake looked around at the ancient ruins. "What about the people?" Who built this place? Were they careful too? Zara touched one of the carved symbols on the wall. I think so. But even careful people can face problems they cannot solve. Climate change, natural disasters, plagues. Speaking of plagues, Jake said, tell me more about your research. What did you discover? Zara's expression became dark. I was studying a new disease that appeared on 3 different worlds. All 3 worlds had different species living on them. Humans on one world, Trilaki on another, Zephyrians on the third. All different species, Jake said. But the same disease affected all of them? Yes, that should be impossible. Diseases usually only affect one species or species that are very similar. But this plague could jump between any species. Jake frowned. That does sound impossible. Unless someone made it that way on purpose, Zara finished. That is what I discovered. This is not a natural disease. Someone created it in a laboratory. Who would do something like that? Jake asked. Zara took out her data device and showed him some files. The text was in her language, but Jake could see pictures and charts. I do not know who yet, but I know why. The plague is designed to target specific genetic markers that exist in species that are considered young or primitive by some of the older civilizations. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Species like humans? Yes. The plague would kill humans very quickly. It would also kill dozens of other species that have only developed space travel in the last few thousand years. Someone wants to wipe out the younger species, Jake said. Why? I think it is about resources, Zara said. The galaxy is getting crowded. There are not enough habitable worlds for everyone. Some people think the solution is to reduce the number of species competing for those worlds. Jake was quiet for a long time. He was thinking about Earth, about his family and friends, about billions of people who had no idea they were being targeted for extinction. Your people, he said finally. The Velkari. Are they part of this? No, Zara said quickly. Most Velkari would never support such a thing. But we are also not doing anything to stop it. The Confederacy moves slowly. They want more proof, more data, more time to make sure they are making the right decision. While people die, Jake said. Yes, Zara admitted. While people die. Jake looked at her data device. How long before this plague spreads to more worlds? If someone releases it deliberately, it could reach 100 worlds within a year, 1,000 worlds within 5 years. By then, it would be too late to stop. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the alien stars looked down at them. Somewhere out there, Earth was turning under its familiar sun. People were going to work, falling in love, having children, living their lives. They had no idea what was coming. We have to warn them, Jake said. I know, Zara said. But how? The pirates destroyed my ship. Your ship is gone too. We are trapped on this planet. Jake turned back to her. What about the ancient technology here? You said some of it still works. Some of it, yes. But I do not understand most of it. And even if I could make it work, it might not be able to send messages across space. But it might, Jake said. It is worth trying. Zara looked at him with surprise. Jake, the chances of success are very small. Maybe 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000. So, Jake said, if there is any chance at all, we have to try. But if we fail, we will have wasted time and energy we need for survival. The smart thing to do is wait for rescue. Jake sat down next to her. Zara, let me tell you something about humans. We do not always do the smart thing. Sometimes we do the right thing instead. What is the difference? She asked. The smart thing would be to stay hidden and hope the pirates give up looking for us. The right thing is to try to save billions of people, even if it means taking risks. Zara studied his face in the dim light. Your species is very strange. You make decisions based on emotions instead of logic. Sometimes, Jake agreed. But emotions can be logical too. If I let those people die because I was afraid to take risks, how could I live with myself? What kind of person would that make me? A living person, Zara said. A careful person. Maybe, but not a person I would want to be. They spent the next hour going through Zara's research data together. Jake could not read her language, but he could understand the pictures and diagrams. The plague was truly horrifying. It attacked the nervous system first, causing pain and paralysis. Then it shut down the immune system. Death came slowly and horribly. The people who made this, Jake said. They are not just murderers, they are monsters. Yes, Zara agreed. And they have to be stopped. Jake made a decision. Tomorrow we work on the ancient communication system. We try to get a message out. Even though we will probably fail? Zara asked. Especially because we might fail, Jake said. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reason to try. Zara was quiet. For a long time. Finally she spoke. Among my people, what you are suggesting would be considered foolish. Wasteful. We would wait for a better opportunity. And how often do better opportunities come along? Jake asked. Not very often, Zara admitted. Then maybe your people are too careful, Jake said gently. Maybe sometimes you have to take the chance you have, even if it is not the chance you want. They took turns keeping watch that night. During Jake's watch, he thought about the differences between humans and Velkari. Zara's people were older, smarter, more advanced. They had survived for 50,000 years by being careful and logical. But sometimes being careful meant doing nothing. And doing nothing was a choice too. A choice that had consequences. During Zara's watch, she thought about what Jake had said. Her people would call his plan foolish. They would say the risks were too high and the chances too small. But Jake was willing to risk his life to save people he had never met. People who were not even his own species. That was not logical, but it was something else. It was brave. When morning came, they began working on the ancient communication array. Jake used his mechanical skills to repair damaged connections. Zara used her scientific knowledge to understand how the technology worked. It was slow, difficult work. The technology was thousands of years old and completely different from anything either of them had seen before. They made mistakes. They had to start over several times, but they kept working. Jake because he believed they had to try. Zara because she was starting to believe that maybe sometimes trying was more important than succeeding. Jake, she said, as they worked. Can I ask you something? Sure, he said, not looking up from the power coupling he was repairing. When you grabbed my tail in the escape pod, you said you were just trying to stop me from hitting the controls. But was that the only reason? Jake stopped working and looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, you could have let me hit the controls. We both would have died, but it would have been quick. Instead, you saved us both for a slower death on this planet. Why? Jake thought about it. I guess I figured that as long as we were alive, there was still a chance things could get better. Dead is dead, but alive means you can still do something, you can still make a difference. Zara smiled. It was the first time Jake had seen her really smile. That is very human thinking. Is that good or bad? Jake asked. I'm beginning to think it might be good, Zara said. Very good indeed. 3 days later, Jake and Zara had managed to get parts of the ancient communication system working. It was not perfect, but it could send basic signals across space. The problem was that they needed more power than the old system could provide. We need a stronger energy source, Zara said, looking at her scanner readings. The signal is too weak to reach other star systems. Jake studied the ancient machinery. What if we connect it to our escape pod's power core? The pod's power core is almost dead, Zara said, and if we remove it from the pod, we will have no life support backup. If we do not send this message, we will not need life support backup, Jake said. Because everyone will be dead from the plague. Zara nodded grimly. You are right. But there is another problem. Even if we get enough power, someone has to stay here and operate the system manually. The controls are too damaged for automatic operation. Jake understood what she was saying. And the pirates will come back. Whoever operates the system will probably die. Yes, Zara said quietly. They worked in silence for a while, both thinking about what that meant. Finally, Jake spoke. I will stay and operate the system, he said. You take the escape pod and try to get off this planet. No, Zara said immediately. The pod is damaged. It cannot reach orbit, and I do not know how to operate human technology. Then, we both stay, Jake said. That is not logical, Zara protested. If we both die here, no one will know what we discovered. The plague will still spread. Jake looked at her with a small smile. Zara, remember what I told you about doing the right thing instead of the smart thing? Before she could answer, they heard the sound of engines in the sky. The pirates were back. How many ships? Jake asked, looking out the window. 5, Zara said, counting the dots in the sky. More than twice as many as before. Jake ran to the communication array. How long do we need to send the complete message? Zara checked her data. At least 10 minutes for a full transmission, maybe 15 to make sure it gets through. Then we better get started, Jake said. They carried the power core from their escape pod to the ancient communication chamber. It was heavy work, and they had to move quickly. Outside, they could hear the pirate ships landing. Jake connected the power core to the ancient machinery, while Zara prepared her research data for transmission. The old alien technology hummed to life, glowing brighter than it had in thousands of years. It is working, Zara said with excitement. I am getting responses from multiple star systems. The message is going out. Through the stone walls, they could hear voices. The pirates were surrounding the ruins. Find them, Captain Vantock's voice boomed across the jungle. And this time, bring me the human alive. I want to kill him slowly. Jake checked his pistol. It still had a few shots left. Not enough to fight off 20 pirates, but maybe enough to buy Zara the time she needed. Keep transmitting, he told her. I will hold them off as long as I can. Jake, no, Zara said. There are too many of them. You cannot win. I do not need to win, Jake said. I just need to not lose for 15 minutes. He moved toward the entrance of the communication chamber. Outside, he could see the pirates moving through the ruins. They had learned from their last visit. This time they were wearing full environmental suits to protect against the toxic plants. They had brought scanning equipment to detect the pack hunters. They were being careful, but Jake had learned too. He had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. Hidden around the ruins were improvised traps and weapons he had built using ancient technology and materials from their escape pod. Nothing fancy. Nothing that required advanced knowledge. Just simple, effective tools for fighting back. The first pirate to enter the main chamber stepped on a pressure plate Jake had hidden under some loose stones. The plate triggered a mechanism that dropped a heavy piece of ancient machinery on the pirate's head. The pirate went down hard and did not. Get up, traps, another pirate yelled. Watch where you step. But Jake had more than just pressure plates. He had also connected some of the ancient energy systems to motion detectors. When 3 pirates entered the next chamber, beams of blue energy shot out from the walls. The pirates' armor protected them from most of the damage, but the impact knocked them backwards into a pit Jake had dug and covered with thin branches. Captain Vantock's voice echoed through the ruins. Clever human, but you cannot trap us all. Jake knew that was true. His traps would slow the pirates down, but they would not stop them. He needed to be more direct. He appeared at the entrance to one of the outer chambers, fired 3 shots at the nearest pirates, then disappeared back into the maze of ancient corridors. The pirates fired back, but Jake was already gone. 6 minutes, Zara called from the communication chamber. I need 6 more minutes. Jake moved through the ruins like a ghost. He knew every passage, every hidden entrance, every weak wall he could break through to create new paths. The pirates had better weapons and armor, but they did not know the terrain. Jake used that advantage. He fired from unexpected angles. He collapsed weak walls to block their paths. He used the ancient machinery to create noise and confusion, making the pirates think he was in places where he was not. But there were too many of them. Slowly, they surrounded him. His ammunition ran out. His hiding places became fewer. 3 minutes, Zara called. Jake found himself cornered in a dead-end chamber. 5 pirates stood between him and the exit. Captain Vantok was one of them. "End of the line, human," Vantok said. His gray skin was scarred from their last encounter, and one of his 4 arms was bandaged. "You have caused me a great deal of trouble." "Good," Jake said. "I was aiming for more trouble, but I will take what I can get." Vantok raised his weapon. "Any last words?" Jake looked around the chamber. The walls were covered in the same ancient technology he had been studying for days. Some of it was still powered by the energy core they had connected to the communication system. "Yeah," Jake said. "I have some last words." He reached out and grabbed one of the glowing control panels on the wall. Every piece of ancient machinery in the chamber began to vibrate and hum. "What are you doing?" Vantok demanded. "Something stupid," Jake said with a grin. "Something completely, totally stupid." He yanked the control panel out of the wall. Sparks flew everywhere. The ancient energy systems began to overload. "He is going to bring down the whole building," one of the pirates screamed. The pirates ran for the exit as the chamber began to shake apart. Vantok hesitated for a moment, then followed his crew. He wanted to kill Jake, but he did not want to die doing it. Jake ran too, but not toward the exit. He ran deeper into the ruins toward the communication chamber where Zara was still transmitting. Behind him, the overloaded energy systems exploded. The blast brought down half of the ancient building, creating a wall of rubble between Jake and the pirates. "1 minute," Zara called as Jake stumbled into the communication chamber. His face was cut and bleeding from flying debris, but he was alive. "Did they get the message?" Jake asked. Zara's eyes were bright with excitement. "Yes, I have confirmations from 12 different star systems. The Velkari Confederacy, the Human Colonial Authority, the Trilaki Republic. Even some systems I have never heard of. Everyone is receiving the data." "Good," Jake said, sitting down heavily. "Then it was worth it." The sound of energy weapons came from outside. The pirates were trying to blast through the rubble that blocked their path. "They will get through eventually," Zara said. "Eventually," Jake agreed, "but not in time to stop the message." They sat together in the ancient chamber, listening to the pirates' work. The communication array was still humming, still sending Zara's research data across the galaxy. In a few hours, governments and scientists on dozens of worlds would know about the artificial plague. They would start working on defenses. They would start looking for the people responsible. "Jake," Zara said quietly. "Thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For showing me that sometimes the impossible thing is the only thing worth doing." Before Jake could answer, they heard a new sound. Different engines. More ships arriving. But these ships sounded different. Heavier. More powerful. Through the chamber's broken window, they could see new ships landing. Big ships with official markings. Velkari Confederacy ships. Human colonial ships. Even ships from species Jake had never seen before. The cavalry had arrived. The sound of energy weapons outside stopped. They could hear Captain Vantok's voice, but now it sounded worried instead of angry. "This is Captain Rex Vantok of the free trader vessel Dark Star. We are conducting legitimate salvage operations on this planet," a new voice answered, broadcast through powerful speakers. "This is Admiral Lisa Barnes of the Human Colonial Navy. Captain Vantok, you are under arrest for piracy, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit genocide. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Jake and Zara looked at each other and smiled. "I guess the message got through," Jake said. 30 minutes later, they were sitting in the medical bay of a human colonial ship, being treated for their injuries. Admiral Barnes, a stern woman with gray hair and kind eyes, was asking them questions about what had happened. "Your transmission caused quite a stir," she told them. "Within an hour of receiving it, the Velkari Confederacy contacted us. They wanted to mount a joint rescue mission." "A joint mission?" Jake asked with surprise. "Yes," Admiral Barnes said.